I never thought my own HOA president would dare to steal from me. But one night, I saw something on my cameras, something that made my blood freeze. She wasn't just breaking the rules, she was breaking into my life. And when I caught her, in my RV, sipping wine like she owned it, she had no idea that I was recording every second. And what I did next changed the neighborhood forever. Welcome back to HOA Scandals, the place where petty rules and suburban secrets collide. My name is Mark. I'm just a regular guy living in a quiet neighborhood outside Phoenix, Arizona. I work from home. I keep to myself. I pay my dues like everyone else. But lately, my life has turned into a battle with the HOA. And this time, the fight wasn't about grass length or mailbox color. It was about something much bigger. I always thought my neighborhood was safe, quiet, normal. The kind of place where nothing big ever happened, just the sound of sprinklers in the morning, kids on bikes in the evening, and the smell of fresh-cut grass on weekends. It was boring. But in a way, boring felt good, until the HOA decided I was their enemy. You see, I own an RV. It's nothing crazy, not some million-dollar bus, just a regular RV that I worked years to save for. It's my escape vehicle, my way to get out of suburbia, to drive off on weekends and forget about the endless rules and letters stuffed in my mailbox. But to the HOA, especially to Karen, our president, the RV was a crime. Karen was one of those people who smiled with her mouth, but never with her eyes. Her smile always looked forced, stretched too wide, like she practiced it in the mirror, and whenever she looked at me, it was as if she already planned my funeral. She hated that RV more than anything. She said it was ugly. She said it brought down property values. She even told neighbors it was dangerous to have it parked near the street. But the funny part is, the RV was perfectly legal. I had checked the HOA rulebook so many times I could recite it in my sleep. The RV was allowed, as long as it was parked on my driveway and not blocking the street. And that's exactly what I did. Still, every time Karen walked by, she glared. She would snap pictures on her phone. She would whisper to her husband. She even knocked on my door once to tell me that real neighbors don't live like gypsies. I laughed in her face. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. The real trouble started 1 week before summer. I found a letter taped to my door. The official HOA warning. It said that if I didn't move the RV in 7 days, I would be fined daily until it was gone. The paper smelled like cheap perfume. I knew instantly it was Karen's. I didn't even feel angry at first. I felt something else. Amusement. Because Karen had no clue how much I loved following rules. So I grabbed the HOA rulebook, circled the section that proved I was right, and mailed it straight to her house. A few hours later, she stood on the sidewalk staring at me, that fake smile again. She waved and said softly, "We'll see about that." I should have been worried, but honestly, I laughed. What could she possibly do? Take the RV herself? That idea seemed so insane, so cartoonish, that I never even considered it. But then came the night that changed everything. It was late. I had just finished dinner and was scrolling on my phone. Out of habit, I opened my security app to check the cameras. I wasn't expecting anything, maybe a raccoon in the trash, maybe kids cutting through the yard, but what I saw made me freeze in my chair. Headlights flickered across the driveway. And then, my RV door opened. Karen's husband climbed inside with a flashlight, followed by Karen, holding a giant tote bag like she was moving in. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands shaking. This wasn't some prank. This wasn't a joke. She was actually inside my RV, snooping through my cabinets, opening drawers, walking around like she owned the place. I felt this mix of rage and disbelief, and honestly, a weird kind of dark comedy, because Karen had spent years accusing me of breaking the rules, and now here she was, breaking into my RV in the middle of the night. But then, it got even crazier. The next morning, my RV was gone, not just unlocked, not just opened, but driven away. I rushed outside like a madman, thinking maybe it had been stolen by strangers. But then I saw it. Karen's car was missing too, and her house looked dark and empty, like the whole family had left for vacation. That's when it hit me. Karen hadn't just broken in. She had taken my RV and gone on vacation with her family like it was hers. I stood there in shock. But also, I laughed out loud. Because what she didn't know, what she could never imagine, was that my RV had hidden cameras inside, every corner, every angle, recording non-stop. And as I unlocked my phone and watched the first clip of Karen sipping wine at my table, her kids bouncing on my bed, her husband grilling outside with my propane, I realized something. This wasn't just a battle about rules anymore. This was a war, and I had the ultimate weapon. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. I sat in front of my phone, watching clip after clip, as my HOA president and her family lived inside my RV like it was some Airbnb they had booked for free. I saw them cook breakfast, play card games, even argue about where to stop next. It was insane. It was hilarious. And it was also infuriating. The longer I watched, the more I realized something important. Karen wasn't scared. She wasn't even worried about being caught. She thought she was untouchable, and that made me more determined than ever to bring her down. The next morning, I walked outside like nothing was wrong. Neighbors waved, dogs barked, sprinklers hissed in the distance. It was all so normal. But inside me, a storm was building. I checked Karen's driveway. Empty, her trash cans were pulled out to the street. But the house was silent. No movement, no lights, no cars. She had actually done it. She had stolen my RV and gone on a full-blown family vacation. I laughed under my breath because I knew something she didn't. The cameras weren't just inside the RV. They had sound too. Every whisper, every giggle, every argument. I was hearing it all. And oh, the things I heard, Karen talking about how pathetic I was, her husband asking if they should cover the cameras, her kids complaining that the fridge was too small. It was like watching a reality show I never signed up for, but couldn't look away from. By the second day, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was entertained. It was dark. It was twisted, but I couldn't help myself. Every insult Karen made about me, every smug laugh she gave inside my RV, it only fueled me more, because I knew, at the right time, I would use all of it. But I didn't want to go to the police yet. Not yet. That would be too easy. And honestly, too boring. No. I wanted her to suffer the way she made me suffer with all those petty HOA letters. I wanted the whole neighborhood to see her fall, so I waited. And I planned day 3. The HOA sent me another letter, a fine for non-compliance. They said my RV had been removed from the property, and that I was in violation of the rules. I nearly choked on my coffee when I read it. They were fining me for something Karen herself had done. The irony was so thick I could taste it. I walked to the mailbox with the letter in my hand. And that's when I saw him, Mr. Thompson, the oldest man on the block. Watering his lawn like he did every morning, he looked at me, squinted, and said, "You lose the RV, son?" I smiled. "Not exactly." He laughed and shook his head. "That woman thinks she owns this place." And in that moment, I knew something important. I wasn't the only one who hated Karen. That gave me power, because if I played this right, the whole street would turn against her. By the end of the week, my phone was full of recordings. Karen singing off-key to 80s music, her husband yelling at the GPS, her kids fighting over the bathroom. But one clip stood out from all the others. Karen herself, sitting in the RV kitchen, looking into the camera, and saying, "He'll never do anything about it. He's too weak." My blood boiled, but I also smiled, because now I had the perfect moment. The RV returned on Sunday evening. I heard the engine before I saw it, rolling into my driveway like nothing had happened. Karen stepped out in sunglasses, her hair a mess, holding an empty wine bottle like a trophy. Her husband carried bags. Her kids dragged blankets. And when she saw me standing there, her face froze. That fake smile tried to appear, but it didn't quite make it this time. "Lovely weekend, huh?" I said softly. Her lips twitched. "Don't know what you mean," she replied. Her voice cracked, just slightly. And that's when I pulled out my phone. I pressed play. The sound filled the driveway. Karen's voice, laughing, mocking me, calling me weak. The neighbors turned their heads. The Thompsons stopped watering their flowers. Even the mailman froze mid-step. Karen's face went pale. Her sunglasses slipped down her nose, and her eyes darted around like a cornered animal. "You recorded me?" she hissed. I tilted my head. "No, Karen, you recorded yourself." She lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone from my hand. Her husband shouted. Her kids looked terrified, but I pulled back and hit another button. This time, the video showed her pouring wine in my RV kitchen, dancing badly, waving her arms like she was queen of the world. The neighborhood yacht to her. It erupted in laughter. Karen's face turned red, then purple, then red again. She screamed, "I'll call the police." And that's when the irony hit full force, because what would she say? That she stole my RV? And I had video proof? I stepped closer, my voice low so only she could hear. "Go ahead, Karen. Call them. Tell them how you broke into my RV and took a family trip on my dime." Her jaw clenched, her hand shook, and for the first time ever, Karen looked small. Her husband pulled her arm, whispering frantically. The kids tugged at her shirt, begging to go inside, and slowly, she backed away. The queen of the HOA, reduced to silence in her own kingdom, that night. I uploaded the video to the HOA group chat, not all of it. Just enough, her mocking voice, her dancing, her calling me weak. Within minutes, the chat exploded. Neighbors who had hated her for years finally had proof. Comments poured in. "This is who runs our HOA? Disgraceful. About time someone exposed her." By midnight, there was a petition going around to remove her from the board. By the next morning, it had more signatures than I thought possible. And by the end of the week, Karen was officially out. The woman who fined me for my grass being too tall. The woman who measured mailbox heights like it was life or death. The woman who called me weak had lost everything because she couldn't resist stealing my RV. And the best part? My RV sat proudly in the driveway, legal, untouched, untouchable. But I wasn't done yet, because the truth is, the recordings had more. Things I hadn't shown the neighborhood yet, things that could ruin her even more. But the question is, should I release everything? Or should I hold on to it, like a secret weapon, waiting for the day she tries to crawl back into power? After Karen was kicked out of the HOA board, you'd think the story ended there. Justice served, balance restored. The neighborhood finally free from her grip. But the truth is, power-hungry people don't vanish that easily. For a few weeks, everything was calm. I parked my RV, waved to neighbors, enjoyed the peace of not getting petty letters in the mail. The neighborhood even felt different, lighter somehow. No more whispered threats. No more photos taken of my lawn. It almost felt like summer had finally arrived. But then, the notes started. At first it was small, a single envelope on my porch. Inside was a piece of paper. No words, just a photo of my RV, circled in red marker. I thought maybe it was some prank, maybe the kids from the cul-de-sac, but the handwriting on the envelope, the way my name was written, it felt familiar, too familiar. A few days later, another envelope arrived, this time with a printed HOA rule, highlighted in yellow, the line that said, "All vehicles must be in good condition and not a nuisance." No signature, no explanation, just that one line staring back at me. I laughed out loud, because I knew exactly who sent it. Karen was out of power. But she wasn't gone. She had been humiliated, stripped of her title, mocked in the group chat, but instead of disappearing quietly, she was plotting. She wanted revenge. I checked my cameras again. Hours of footage still sitting in my phone, her dancing, her drinking, her mocking me inside my own RV. I had the evidence to bury her forever. But part of me wondered, would releasing more only give her the attention she craved? Then one evening, I caught something even stranger. I was making dinner when I got an alert on my phone. Motion detected. Front yard camera. I opened it. And there she was, Karen, standing at the edge of my driveway, staring at my RV. Karen sneaking wine. Karen calling me weak. Karen yelling at her husband while wearing my bathrobe. It was petty. It was cruel. But it was also justice. By the end of the week, Karen's family put their house up for sale. The for sale sign went up on Saturday morning. By evening, someone had already spray painted the word thief across it. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the slashed tires, the notes, the way she stood outside my driveway in the dark, and whatever pity I felt vanished. Still, as I watched the moving trucks pull up a month later, a strange thought hit me. Had I gone too far? Sure, she deserved punishment. But did she deserve to lose everything? Her home, her position, her reputation, all gone because of me, some nights. I replay the video clips, not for amusement, but to remind myself why I did it, to remind myself that she started this war. Not me, but deep down, I wonder, did I become just like her? Petty, vindictive, hungry for control? Because here's the twist nobody talks about. When Karen left, the HOA needed a new president, and guess who they asked to step in? Me. At first, I laughed. The idea of me, the man who once hated everything about the HOA, now running it? It felt ridiculous, but the more I thought about it, the more tempting it became, because maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to make things right, to end the stupid rules, the mailbox measurements, the endless fines, to give people freedom in their own homes again. But there's another side to it. The same neighbors who cheered for me could one day turn on me. The same power that corrupted Karen could corrupt me too, because power in suburbia is a dangerous thing. So now I'm standing at a crossroads. Do I take the seat of HOA president and try to fix the mess Karen left behind? Or do I walk away, knowing that no matter what, the game will never really end? When they first asked me to become HOA president, I laughed. I thought it was a joke, a prank from neighbors who wanted to see me squirm. Me, the guy who fought the HOA at every turn, the guy who exposed their queen Karen. But then I looked around the room. They weren't laughing, they were serious. The board members sat there, staring at me with expectant eyes. Mr. Lewis, the treasurer, Mrs. Grant, the secretary, and even old Mr. Thompson, who had lived here longer than anyone. They all leaned forward, waiting for me to say yes. At first, I wanted to reject it. I wanted to tell them that the HOA was poison, that power in this neighborhood turned people rotten. But another part of me, a part I didn't know existed, whispered something else. This was my chance to change everything. So I said yes. The room clapped. Someone patted my back, and just like that, I was the new president of the HOA. It felt surreal. I went home that night, sat in front of the RV, and just stared. I thought about Karen, about how much she had loved this power, how it had consumed her, until it destroyed her. Would I be different? Or was this how it always started, with good intentions, and ended with paranoia and control? The first few weeks were calm. Neighbors actually liked me. I reduced the fines. I relaxed the petty rules. I told people they could paint their fences whatever color they wanted, and suddenly, people were smiling at me in a way they never had before. I was the good guy president, the one who gave back freedom. But freedom comes with a price. One evening, Mrs. Grant called me. She was upset because her neighbor's grass was too long. I told her gently, "It's not hurting anyone, let it be." She didn't like that answer. The next day, she sent me 3 emails filled with photos of the lawn. By the 3rd day, she showed up at my doorstep, demanding I enforce the rules. I brushed her off, but something gnawed at me inside. If I didn't enforce rules, was I even doing my job? Was I any better than Karen if I ignored complaints? So I wrote my first letter as HOA president. It wasn't harsh. It wasn't cruel. Just a friendly reminder to cut the grass. But as I slipped the envelope into the neighbor's mailbox, my hands shook because I realized I was becoming the thing I hated most, and it didn't stop there. Soon it was fences, then mailboxes, then noise complaints about barking dogs. Every week, someone brought me their problem, expecting me to solve it with a letter, a warning, a fine. I told myself I was keeping it fair, keeping it balanced. But little by little, the power pulled me in. I found myself walking the neighborhood at night, checking if cars were parked in the wrong place, measuring trash bins with my eyes. I told myself it was my duty. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was becoming Karen. The neighbors still smiled at me, but their smiles felt different, nervous, fake. The same way I once smiled at Karen when she passed by, and I hated it. But at the same time, I couldn't stop. Then came the incident with Mr. Thompson. One morning I got a call. Someone reported that his shed was too big, too close to the property line. I didn't want to deal with it. He was the sweetest man in the neighborhood, but the rule book was clear, so I went over, clipboard in hand, pretending I was just checking. He greeted me with his usual warm smile, offered me lemonade, told me about his grandkids, but all I could see was the shed behind him, and without even thinking, I pulled out a tape measure when I told him it was 3 inches too close to the property line. His smile faded. He looked at me like I had betrayed him. "You were supposed to be different," he said quietly. The words cut deeper than any insult because he was right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked outside, staring at the shed, staring at the RV, staring at myself in the reflection of the window, and for the first time, I wondered, maybe this power was cursed. Maybe no matter who held it, it always ended the same way. The breaking point came a week later. A neighbor threw a birthday party for their kid. Music played. Kids laughed. Cars lined the street. It was innocent. It was beautiful. But the complaints started pouring in. Emails, phone calls. One board member even shouted at me to shut it down, and against every bone in my body screaming no. I walked over with a warning letter in my hand. The parents looked at me in disbelief. "You can't be serious," they said. The music stopped. The laughter faded. And every pair of eyes burned into me with disappointment. I left the letter on the table and walked away. And that night, I realized I had crossed a line I could never uncross, because the truth is, I wasn't protecting the neighborhood anymore. I was controlling it. The next morning, I found something taped to my RV, a single note. It read, "Congratulations, Karen 2.0. I ripped it down, my heart pounding. Someone saw me, someone knew, and maybe everyone was starting to. Now I sit here, staring at the rulebook on my desk, the same book I once used to fight Karen, the same book I swore I'd never live by. And now it's in my hands, guiding every decision I make. I can feel the power changing me. I can feel the paranoia creeping in. And sometimes, when I catch my reflection in the RV window, I swear I see her face instead of mine." The note calling me Karen 2.0 stayed in my mind for days. I kept it hidden in my desk drawer. But every time I opened it, the words cut deeper. It was simple, but powerful. And the worst part was, it was true. I told myself I was different, that I only enforced rules because people asked me. 2, that I was fair, not cruel. But the truth is, I had crossed the same line Karen once did, and my neighbors could see it. At first, it was subtle. People waved less. Conversations stopped quicker. The smiles faded into nods, then the whispers began. I'd walk by and hear fragments. Same as her. Power got to his head. Thought he was different. The neighborhood that once cheered for me was turning, and I couldn't stop it. The board meetings grew colder. Mr. Lewis avoided eye contact. Mrs. Grant stopped bringing cookies like she used to. Even Mr. Thompson barely spoke to me anymore. And every time I picked up the rulebook, I felt its weight pulling me down. But the breaking point came with the RV. One morning, I stepped outside and found spray paint across the side. Big red letters screaming, "Dictator." I froze, staring at the dripping paint, my heart pounding. The RV wasn't just a vehicle anymore, it was a symbol. First it made Karen hate me, now it made the neighborhood hate me too. I filed a report, called the police. But deep down I knew, this wasn't just vandalism, this was a message. That night, I sat in the RV, staring at the walls, remembering the hidden cameras, the same cameras that once gave me power. I turned them back on, because if my neighbors thought I was Karen 2.0, maybe I had to act like Karen to survive. The recording started small, just people walking by, kids playing, cars driving past. But then I began checking more often, watching more closely. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every laugh outside felt like it was about me. And slowly, paranoia ate me alive. Then came the petition. One evening, I opened my email, And there it was, a petition signed by half the neighborhood, a call for me to step down as HOA president. The same people who once begged me to take the role, the same people who cheered when I exposed Karen, now wanted me gone. I sat there staring at the screen, my chest tight, my hands shaking. How did it all collapse so fast? Had I really become me the villain? The next day, I tried to fight back. I walked door to door, explaining myself, defending my choices, but nobody wanted to listen. Doors closed in my face, eyes turned away. Whispers followed me down the street. I wasn't Mark anymore. I was the dictator. The final straw came at a board meeting. I showed up ready to fight, ready to argue my case. But when I sat down, I realized something horrifying. Every chair around the table was empty. No board members, no allies, just me. And a folded letter in the center of the table. I opened it with trembling hands. It was short, only one line. "You're out." No signatures, no explanation, just those words staring back at me like a death sentence. I left the building that night feeling hollow. The streetlights flickered as I walked home. Shadows stretched across the pavement, and for the first time, I understood how Karen must have felt. The power, the control, the fall. It was all the same story, just with different names. When I reached my driveway, I stopped, because there was something waiting for me. A small cardboard box, taped shut. No return address, no markings. I carried it inside, my heart racing, and slowly opened it. Inside was a single object, a piece of my RV's broken mirror, wrapped in tissue paper, and underneath it, a note. "This is what happens when you try to rule us." I dropped it on the floor, my mind spinning. This wasn't just about power anymore. This was war again. For days I barely slept. I kept the cameras on, patrolled the neighborhood at night, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. Just silence. Cold silence. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. And then it hit me. Maybe this was always the fate of anyone who held HOA power. Karen lost everything. And now I was losing everything too, because in suburbia, control isn't real. It's just an illusion. And the moment people stop believing in it, it shatters. The next week, I resigned. I sent an email to the board, packed up the rule book, and walked away. No speeches, no explanations, just silence. But even now, when I step outside, I feel the eyes on me. Neighbors who once smiled now look away. The RV still sits there, but it doesn't feel like mine anymore. It feels like a target, a reminder of everything I gained and everything I lost. Sometimes I wonder if I should sell the house, sell the RV, start over somewhere new. But another part of me whispers, why run? Why not fight back? Why not expose every secret I learned while I was HOA president? Because here's the truth, nobody knows. I still have recordings, emails, documents, conversations caught on tape, proof of every shady thing the board did before they turned on me. I could burn them all, or I could release them. And if I did, the neighborhood would never recover. The box with the broken mirror stayed on my kitchen counter for days. Every time I walked by, I felt its weight. It wasn't heavy in my hands, but it was heavy in my mind. A reminder of what the neighborhood thought of me, a warning that I wasn't safe anymore. I told myself to ignore it, to move on, to let go of everything. But then I opened my laptop, and there they were. Dozens of folders, hundreds of clips, recordings I had kept since the day Karen stole my RV. Every insult, every argument, every secret whispered behind closed doors, it was all sitting in front of me, like a loaded weapon. And that's when the thought crept in. Maybe I didn't have to walk away quietly. Maybe I could use this, all of it, to take them down. At first, I resisted. I told myself it wasn't worth it, that I'd already lost too much. But the more I thought about the way they turned on me, the way they left me alone at that empty board table, the way they called me Karen 2.0, the anger grew until I couldn't resist anymore, so I started digging. The first clips were harmless. Karen mocking me, and the RV, board members gossiping about neighbors. But then I found something darker. Mr. Lewis, the treasurer, joking about adjusting HOA funds to cover his personal landscaping bill. Mrs. Grant, the secretary, complaining about using HOA money to pay for her private gardener, even Mr. Thompson, the sweet old man, whispering about deals he made years ago to keep his oversized shed without fines. The deeper I looked, the uglier it became. And suddenly, I realized something. I wasn't the villain of this neighborhood. They all were, for years. They had bent the rules for themselves, punished others for the smallest mistakes, and buried their own corruption under paperwork and fake smiles. And now, I was the only one with proof. I spent hours stitching together clips, each one carefully chosen, each one timed perfectly. It felt like editing a movie where the villains finally got exposed. By the time I finished, it was 40 minutes long. I called it the HOA Files. But before I hit upload, I hesitated because I knew what would happen. Once it was out there was no going back. The neighborhood would explode. Friendships would collapse. Reputations would be destroyed forever. I would be the match that burned the whole street down. I sat there, finger hovering over the button, sweating. Then I remembered the red paint on my RV, the word dictator. I remembered the empty boardroom, the note calling me Karen 2.0, and the anger roared back, so I uploaded it. At first, nothing happened. A few hours passed. Silence. Then the messages started. Is this real? Did you see what Lewis said? Wait until you hear about Grant. By evening, the neighborhood Facebook page was on fire. The video spread faster than I imagined. Clips reposted, slowed down, highlighted with captions. Neighbors who had once ignored me were now demanding answers from the board, the same board that had forced me out. And then, chaos. Lewis resigned that night. Grant deleted her social media accounts. Even Thompson stopped coming out to water his lawn. One by one, they crumbled under the weight of their own secrets. It was everything I had wanted, and yet, it felt strange, because instead of cheering for me, the neighborhood turned on itself. Arguments broke out in the street. Accusations flew between houses. Neighbors who had been friends for years now refused to speak. The video hadn't just exposed the board, it had poisoned the entire community. And in the middle of it all was me. I watched from my window as groups gathered on sidewalks, shouting, pointing fingers. Cars slowed down to stare at the RV. At me. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't even a villain. I was something else. The storyteller. The puppet master. The one who showed everyone the truth they never wanted to see. For a moment, I felt powerful again. But then, I felt something colder. Isolation. Because now nobody trusted anyone, and nobody trusted me. A week later, I woke up to silence. Not the normal, peaceful silence of suburbia, but a hollow silence. Lawns uncut, mailboxes untouched. Neighbors hiding behind curtains. The neighborhood wasn't dead, it was rotting, and I had lit the fuse that night. As I sat in my RV, I opened the cameras again, not because I needed proof, but because I couldn't stop myself. Watching, listening, collecting. It was an addiction, the same addiction that had destroyed Karen, and now it was mine. I leaned back in the RV chair, staring at the glowing screens, and whispered to myself, I became the monster, and they deserved it. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it, because here's the truth. When you dig up dirt on everyone, you don't just bury them, you bury yourself too. The neighborhood never went back to normal after the video. How could it? Once secrets are out, you can't shove them back into the dark. You can't unhear the insults, unsee the lies, unfeel the betrayal. The lawns were still green, the fences still white, the mailboxes still straight, but behind every door, there was tension. Neighbors who used to chat over coffee now crossed the street to avoid each other. Children who once played tag in the cul-de-sac were pulled inside early, and every time I stepped out to my driveway, I felt their eyes on me. Some looked at me with gratitude, others with disgust, but all of them with fear, because I wasn't just the guy with the RV anymore. I was the guy with the recordings, the guy who exposed everyone, the guy who proved nobody was safe. At first, I thought I had won. The board was destroyed. Karen was gone. The truth was out. But then the silence set in, and it wasn't victory I felt. It was emptiness. The RV became my fortress. I spent nights inside, scrolling through old clips. Not because I needed them anymore, but because I couldn't stop watching. It was like reliving a past I both hated and craved. The anger, the power, the laughter of catching people in lies. It was addictive, and addictions don't just fade away. Weeks turned into months. Houses went up for sale. Families moved out. For sale signs multiplied across the block. The same street that once bragged about its perfect lawns now looked abandoned. It wasn't an HOA anymore. It was a ghost town. And yet, I stayed one evening. I saw a moving truck outside Thompson's house. He waved at me half-heartedly, his smile tired, broken. "You ruined her," he said softly, meaning Karen. Then after a pause, he added, "And you ruined us too." He climbed into his truck and drove away. His taillights disappeared into the night, and I was left standing there, alone in the cul-de-sac. That's when it hit me. Maybe Karen had been right all along. Not about the RV, not about the petty rules, but about power. Nobody really wants freedom in suburbia. They want control. They want it's someone to punish their enemies, reward their friends, and keep the illusion of peace. And when I gave them the truth instead, the illusion shattered. And nobody forgives the man who breaks the illusion. The funny part is, new families started moving in, fresh faces, fresh smiles, unaware of the history that lingered in every corner. They didn't know about the fines, the stolen RV, the video that tore the street apart. But they would learn, because neighborhoods like this, they never really change. They just reset, like a bad TV show that keeps starting a new season with different actors. But the same plot. And me? I became the ghost of the cul-de-sac, the man who watched, the man who recorded, the man who knew too much. The RV still sat in my driveway, legal as ever. But now it was more than a vehicle. It was a symbol, a warning, a curse. Sometimes at night, I hear laughter outside. Sometimes I swear I see Karen's shadow near the hedges. Maybe it's paranoia. Maybe it's guilt. Or maybe it's the neighborhood reminding me that battles like this never really end. Because you don't escape an HOA war, you just survive it. Until the next one starts. One night, I sat in the RV and played the very first clip I ever saved. Karen sipping wine, smiling at the camera, mocking me. I expected to feel rage again. But instead, I felt something stranger, pity. Because in her face, I didn't just see her, I saw myself. And that's when I realized I had become the very thing I fought to destroy. Not Karen exactly, not the HOA exactly, but something worse. A man defined by conflict, a man who couldn't let go, a man who turned his neighborhood into a stage for drama and forgot how to live off script. I shut off the cameras that night for the first time in months. I let the RV go dark, and in the silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. But peace doesn't erase the past, it only hides it. And the past always has a way of clawing its way back. Now, when I walk outside, the neighbors look at me carefully. The new ones smile politely. The old ones glare with quiet hatred, and I never know what they're really thinking. Are they waiting for me to strike again? Or are they just afraid I still have something left in my files? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. That's the power of being the man with the recordings. Nobody ever really knows. And sometimes, late at night, I ask myself the same question you're probably asking right now. Was it worth it? The revenge, the exposure, the destruction of the board. Was it worth losing the peace, the friendships, the normal life I once had? I don't know the answer. Maybe I never will. All I know is this. The RV is still here. I am still here. And the HOA, no matter how many times it dies, will always rise again.